Going live. Oh, it's taking some time. There we go.
Hi everyone.
Hello. Good evening to the UK. Good morning to everyone else, or good night, depending.
Good night to anywhere east of where we are in the
East
world.
of where we are. I see. Okay. Well, I've jumped on because it's been a long time since I've play tested Era Kaiju, a very, very long time, and you've come up with some new stuff recently.
That is true, and we thought what we'd do is talk about some of the interesting stuff that we've come up with, and why it came about, how it came about,
and take a trip down memory lane, thinking about some of the stuff that influenced your drive to do it in the first place.
A little bit of stuff that's just a bit of fun.
So I remember when we'd started coming up with monster ideas, you said, tell me who your favorite monster was. I was lazy. I said King Kong, and we converted it to a...
you are very lazy. That is true.
I just wanted an excuse to beat my chest a bit.
Okay, well, whatever works for you.
So we converted it to a very rudimentary Era D10, and we had a little battle.
Sorry. Apologies, everyone. My machine does that sometimes. Sorry, it did a funny thing.
So yes, we had a little battle royale. I think you won because you made King Ghidorah.
In no way am I a bit of a munchkin when it comes to that.
Luke got Cyber Godzilla through a window. That was fun.
That is also hilarious.
But that was the start of it, and then we started looking at some more influences, some more monster movies.
Well, that was where Lucas suggested that we have a go at the Destroy All Monsters melee on the GameCube.
Godzilla,
because we were building these
melee.
And that's the one. And it's hilarious, and if you haven't tried it and you have a GameCube, you should try it.
It is also,
if you like Kaiju, it's hilarious. And you can play as Mecha Godzilla, or you can play as Godzilla, or you can play as King Ghidorah, or wasn't there a Mecha King Ghidorah?
There was a Mecha King Ghidorah. There was also a distinction between Godzilla 68 and Godzilla 2000. I like to think that Jean Reno appears whenever you play as Godzilla 2000, but that's just me.
You got, it was basically like a fighting game, but in a sort of 3D arena rather than the classic sort of 2D that you get in the...
It was Tekken,
the older fighting games. No, it was even more open than that, because what it let you do, don't you remember, it let you wander around the town and like pick up a building and throw them at other people and whack them on the head a few times.
So I used a water tower as a club and whacked someone with it. Yeah, I remember that.
And you could roll around, and there was the character, the Kaiju, the famous one I can never remember the name of, that can burrow underground. And he would burst up. No, he would burst up from underground and get you. And obviously, I talked about the burrowing ability yesterday, and that's where that came from. That was literally transferred directly into the game. A lot of the things from that game, I thought to myself, right, well, if I was playing a Kaiju, I would want to be able to do that. And I'm sure that's what the game designers of this GameCube game thought, right? They thought, right, well, what are people going to want to do? Your Rodan, what are you going to want to be able to do? Your Godzilla, what do you want to be able to do?
Shoot people with a hyper.
Or
have a bunch. Yeah, have a bunch.
Just open their mouth and energy beam down inside it, like he does in the a variety of movies actually.
Or just beat people with wings because I'm Mothra and just do the screech and the
Yep,
big
absolutely
thing, right?
So we then moved on to talking about which Godzilla movies we should watch. And that led to this hilarious evening that we had, where we sat down and watched. I can never remember the name of it. Actually, it's not Destroy All Monsters. It's from about the year 2000, and
it's a Japanese.
Yeah, it is. It is Japanese, although it's got one American actor in it who is undubbed.
I looked him up.
Yeah,
he was a professional wrestler in the Japanese circuit, and that's why he was doing that.
That's what Luke told us at the time, and it's insane. It's so funny. Aliens arrive and abduct all of the kaiju who have already just gone on a rampage, and this is without Godzilla, because right at the start, our wrestler dude, he covers Godzilla in an avalanche in the South Pole.
Yeah. puts him to sleep.
And
pushes
then
a
like
reptile.
40 years later is where the rest of the movie takes place. And they're they're scooping up all these kaiju, and apparently there are also mutants who are like martial artists.
Yep. Oh, I remember now. Yep.
And I'm still not sure why. Oh, and all of the bad guys look like K-pop bands.
They look like evil K-pop Power Rangers. That's their whole thing. They had slick back
The
hair
leather
and
jackets
leather
and the
jackets.
sunglasses. Oh man, absolutely brilliant.
We'll find out the actual name and we'll post it.
We will eventually find out the actual name, but in some ways it's more fun not knowing. I'm not gonna lie. There are some parts of that that's just more fun not knowing.
I'm sure Lucas will catch the stream and he will comment below and let us know. That's probably what's going to happen.
Forgive me, everyone, for my cough. I'm afraid I'm still a bit under the weather. That's why Leo's joined me today, to give me a hand and
to help talk a bit more.
Yeah, talk a bit more.
And that's something I'm very good at. So on top of getting inspired to use the environment as a literal weapon, which I think is a very good thing that should be self-explanatory, but when you write a rule book, sometimes you've got to explain the obvious.
And it is absolutely within the rules of Era Kaiju. Very important.
What else did we play?
Well, we talked about what effect you would have on humanity and the way in which you might cause problems for humanity if you're destroying buildings. I mean, I think the Destroy All Monsters Melee game, I think it assumed that the cities were... I hope it assumed that the cities were evacuated. It wasn't very clear, and I just sort of let that hand wave itself,
I think
right?
they didn't want to animate or spend the RAM for the collateral damage.
I mean, I'm hoping that it was empty.
Keep telling yourself,
because otherwise I would feel quite bad about it, to be honest. The number of buildings that I whacked other kaiju over the head with.
Sometimes a high rise is the best weapon you've got.
Sometimes. Yeah, I still feel bad.
You're the only kaiju with a conscience.
What can I say? My kaiju is a human lover. Again, that's the thing within Era Kaiju. The various quirks you can have. You can have human lover. You can be a scourge, so you can actually emit radiation everywhere you go, for example, or maybe even just a foul smell. It's up to you. It's a quirk. Obviously, you can build on it. But it was a lot of fun to offer these different kind of options for people around how they build their character. And as you say, it came from watching these movies, and it came from since then. I don't know if you know this, actually. I went and looked up some of the original 1960s stuff, the older ones, the original Godzilla stuff. I still haven't got around to watching the Shin Godzilla movie. I really need to, but I haven't got around to that yet. I also haven't got around to Godzilla -1.
Shin
I'm really sad to
Godzilla
say.
-1 is apparently very, very good.
Oh, absolutely. I've heard all the brilliant reviews of it. I just haven't quite got there myself yet. I really do want to watch that. I think it would be very worthwhile for me to watch that. But yeah, all of these things and all of these influences, they end up pushing you in a direction, don't they? They bring you to, well, I want this and I don't want that. I don't want the flying submarines with drills on the front from that movie and laser cannons.
Or the Mind Ray Planet cult.
Or the Mind Ray Planet cult.
Yeah.
I think we can manage without those. Although if you want to include them, I really want you to have the capability.
It's really, really funny because before you and Lucas both said, "Oh no, we're playing this game," I thought we were going to play a game called War of the Monsters, which came out on the same
GameCube as well, wasn't it?
GameCube, PS2, Xbox, and it was a monster movie with all the trademarks filed off. You can tell they were planning to have a big mashup of like the universe, imagine if you did a brawl
like the Universal thing or the Marvel thing, exactly. Like where you get everyone. Marvel versus Capcom.
A Marvel versus Capcom, but for monster movies, they obviously had to, because you were going to have the Blob and you were going to have Gigantor, who is a really specific grandfather of mecha robot, and you can tell that something fell through, so they came up with this obviously anime mech with a sword for an arm, and the Blob that had bits of people floating in, but he was blue instead of green. The obvious that I cannot believe it's not Godzilla, and also Mecha Godzilla.
You know what else I would have put in there? the Martian walking machines from.
They did have a Martian.
There you go.
Machine.
There you go. You can tell I'm a game designer,
They went
can't you?
full. They went full B movie with it. So when you'd smash up and the army would roll out, it'd be the tanks with the green. They look like army men, the traditional army men, and that's how I know if when I read through this book, I know I'm going to lean into that campy B movie element.
I think that's fantastic. I mean, I want you to be able to do that. I also want you to be able to, if you want, lean into, I don't know, a Godzilla versus Kong.
Yeah.
Something that I hesitate to say the word serious, but a little more, maybe.
A bit more, let's call it, it's got a bit more narrative weight, shall we say?
Yeah, I think that's fair.
That's a good way to do it. The other great thing about War of the Monster was everyone had their own weapon animations.
Right.
So one of my favorite things was picking up a radio tower and batting someone over the head with it. But if you used, there were like 3 sets of Japanese like mecha. They always had like kung fu poses with no matter what weapon. It was mental. It was a really. So those are 2 games you should go and look up on eBay probably, or that word that rhymes with. I can't think of a good rhyme for emulator.
The river.
The river. Yeah, I guess there too. Yep.
So, those 2 were obviously large influences on what I wanted to be able to do in game. But another big influence was I wanted to really remove you as the player from the humanity.
Yep.
And a lot of people have made suggestions. We talk about this a lot in our How to Be Creative panels, don't we? Mm-hmm. About how a lot of people will go, oh, well, you could do this, or are you going to do that? I think you should do this. I want that. I've had that more in this project than ever before, really, apart from maybe Era of the Consortium. It's really like, oh, I want to be able to do this thing. And I'm like, well, I get it, right? And I think the rules probably support it, but I'm not going to make that canon within the universe. It's not the thing I want to do. But more so than any other time, I've been asked about Ultraman. I've been asked about magical kaiju girls, and I'm not entirely sure what that means. I'm assuming it's girls that transform into kaiju. That's my guess, anyway.
Kind of like Power Ranger rules.
Sort of like Ultraman, right? Like that sort of thing, I'm guessing. I've been asked a lot about those sorts of things, and me personally, I don't really want to sort of make them canon in this universe. I see this universe as it's biological. It's much more like that legendary Godzilla universe that they've got, where there are just these creatures, and they're amazing creatures that no one really knew existed just because they're so prehistoric. They're so long since gone, not dead, but gone from the world.
Yeah.
And then suddenly they re-emerge, and that's really the essence I wanted to capture with this game.
Like how they tried to do that sort of tweak in the Peter Jackson King Kong movie.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And they played with it in Skull Island as well. You can't get to Skull Island for reasons. And they're bad, silly, ridiculous reasons, but that's okay because I saw a great review of Skull Island that said, "Look, this is a B movie. It's supposed to be a B movie. It acts like a B movie. It plays like a B movie. Call it a B movie. Call it what it is, and it's a perfectly fine B movie. It's people who are trying to get it to be a AAA."
Yeah.
Maxed out, perfectly written thing that get disappointed with it.
And honestly, that just proves that there's so many ways to play Era Kaiju.
Absolutely.
Whether that's B movie or AAA or cereal box
mascots. Oh, I mean, imagine how much fun it would be. Did you see Kong Skull Island?
I saw bits of it. I forgot.
Sure, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. But there are all these different kinds of environments that they go through and all these different kinds of kaiju. And King Kong fights a variety of kaiju. But King Kong in Skull Island is probably more akin to a beta kaiju than an alpha. And deliberately so, because in the Kong vs. Godzilla movie, it's 40 years later, he's a lot bigger, he's matured. He's actually sort of seen as a bit of a baby in the Skull Island movie.
Yeah.
But he's going around through all these environments. There are these giant spider things that get people, and there are these crueler things and so on. And can you imagine running a game where you're being a beta kaiju and you're moving through this environment, or a group of beta kaiju? You're moving through this environment. they're filled with other kaiju who don't want you in their territory.
Yeah.
And while it might be easy enough to deal with them once you know they're there, maybe the numbers are problematic because there's a whole family of them, or whatever. You're fighting these various enemies, trying to make yourself, maybe take over their territory or just win and escape.
You're just trying to get through or escort yourself.
Perhaps so.
It could be anything.
And that gives you so many possibilities if you imagine something like Skull Island or Hidden Earth. They call it Hidden Earth.
They call it something like that.
They call it something like that.
Godzilla versus Kong, right?
Yeah, the Godzilla, the underground world.
The underworld.
Yes, Hollow Earth. That's what they call it, Hollow Earth. I'm sorry, I got confused with Sanctuary, who also called it Hollow Earth. It's such a common concept.
It's just proof that creativity knows no bounds, and sometimes they step on the same.
Sometimes,
patterns.
steal someone else's ideas. Yeah. And then the other thing about Era Kaiju is if you want to go with some of the more nuts ideas that they have in some of the Godzilla movies, they have these aliens turn up very, very frequently in Godzilla movies. They make a lot of cyborgs out of kaiju, and one of the things that I think is quite an interesting idea for a session is where maybe you are kaiju, but what if you woke up having been turned into cybernetic kaiju by an alien power? You were just minding your own business and then one day you'll wake up in the same place. That would be a great start for like a campaign or something. That'd be a really fun thing to sort of follow through on and think about.
And that seed alone could go different places, because I immediately thought of what's it called? Mojo World, the Marvel space Coliseum.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. At the same time, it could be these horrible misfit maned Titan noble creatures,
the island
right?
of misfit Titans.
Who just want to look for a new home now. That they were abducted by aliens, they were cybernetically modified and then dumped back on the planet. And then, maybe that means that, I don't know, their willpower is lower now than it was before, and they're never going to quite be the same again.
Maybe they've got weaknesses to a certain nature that they didn't have before.
Right. Or maybe they set off EMPs when they get angry. So maybe this was a benign alien race who were modifying the kaiju so that if they get too angry and start going on a rampage, they EMP themselves and collapse. Not permanently kill themselves, you understand, but just stop themselves.
Like a shock collar with an angry pet.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe they're benign aliens. Who says there aren't?
That's true.
That would be perfectly within the realms of possibility for Era Kaiju, I think, and for kaiju movies in general. So I want to give huge flexibility, really. And I really enjoyed being able to build that flexibility into Era Kaiju and draw from all of these places where I went, oh, I like that. Oh, and you know what? I don't like that so much. I don't want to do that. But I want to do this. I didn't want to do Pacific Rim.
But there's nothing to stop another. I can think of a way to do Pacific Rim really easily, just using the core rulebook as the bear.
The kaiju rulebook. Absolutely, because at the end of the day, you're just going, right, well, I have an energy beam, or I'm
a mechanized.
I have a whip, so I can constrict, or whatever. You just say, right, I'm a mechanized thing. I'm going to do it that way. That's going to be my thing. You could do it, but it's not. It's sort of deliberately not included because. To me, I wanted this to be about the kaiju and the creatures, as I was saying, these noble creatures who have appeared for some reason that humanity may not even be sure about. A lot of people dunk on the Zilla movie from '97, the Matthew Broderick movie.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, it spawned that lovely animated series. Which that was my first introduction to Godzilla, probably.
The one with the kid who's Godzilla's best friend.
That's right.
Yeah, that was the same for me.
And this is Godzilla fighting a whole bunch of different monsters. And anyone who's really familiar with the animated series will go through it, and they'll go through the Era Kaiju rulebook and they go, oh yeah, I sort of recognize that one. That one looks a bit.
Yep.
That one looks a bit similar. Because I put a few homages in there. I wanted to.
You took the words out of my mouth. I was about to say we call that an homage in the business.
Yeah, absolutely. But it is an homage. They're slightly different to what's shown, But a lot of the powers that are shown, camouflage is one that comes to mind. The ability to just turn invisible, the invulnerable form. I'll be talking more about the powers tomorrow, I hope. All of these options, they actually came from watching that animated series and thinking, oh, you know what? I'd like players to be able to do that. I think that's a lot of fun. Let's do that. Let's have players able to do this.
Yeah, sounds good.
So, yeah, Era Kaiju draws from a huge number of different sources.
And I think our discussion proves that you can throw in some of your own flavors once you've got the book in your hands.
Absolutely. If you're a Pacific Rim
fan,
I would like to think that you can pick up this game, go, right, I am a mechanized thing, I'm going to fight the kaiju. That makes sense why you're a beta kaiju at that point, where you're a bit smaller, a bit less powerful. You're going to have difficulty fighting kaiju. You have to be smart. So maybe at that point, you're letting the player act with smarts in a way that normally in Era Kaiju, you'd have to communicate a little more loosely, with a little more difficulty. So yeah, please check out Era Kaiju. It's on Kickstarter. I'll stick a link in the comments to make sure that everyone can find it. But it's on Kickstarter right now. We've just passed 100 backers. I'm very sorry. We've just passed 100 backers. 102. That's where the 2 came from. Just passed 100 backers, which means we're going to be adding another free digital game to your bundle that you get. So that's 2 digital games. There's a 4-character bestiary, and of course the Era Kaiju rulebook itself. My words have suddenly fallen apart, I'm afraid. You're able to get all of that, and the bestiary will just grow as we bring in a little more toward overall funded goal, a little more money. I am happy to use the money that we bring in from this project to invest in bringing you a larger and more interesting universe for Era Kaiju.
Well, that's why the stretch goals exist.
Absolutely.
And if you've enjoyed watching this, recommend some more games for us. Drop them in the comments.
Yeah,
your favorite movie.
Yeah, what's a good Kaiju movie for Leo to watch? He hasn't watched them.
I
have my favorites, but what's your favorite? What do you think he should look at?
All right. Catch you later.
Thank you very much.